And one goes to a question, why this happened? Can't we come out of it? How long should it take? Because some countries were able to realize this, and they had to do what it takes to be who they should be. And also with this kind of assertive statement, we believe also Uganda should be what it should be. Should not stop at good statements, the power of Africa. And indeed, we can be able to be a real power of Africa. We have natural resources, sir. We have educated people who have traveled over the country, who have gone for green pastures as great medical doctors and professors. We have, you know, it's of recent that we are talking about the oil, which has spent some years, and all those unresolved questions. And we ask ourselves, why should we remain poor? Because the data, in our term and in our context, not referring to America, we are poor because we are not able to service it in time. It carries on, it remains a yoke on us, and it should be broken. And we are talking of independence, of which we attained, 1962. But the realization of this independence should be matching to those very countries which we are admiring, upper middle income status countries, and also the first world economies. And I do believe it is possible. Why has this disease of debt increased? Is it a policy-making issue? Is it lack of political will and commitment? Is it because our people, especially those who are accessing resources, are indeed more than corrupt, but ready to spend and spend at the expense of the citizens? Why are we not having debt that is for production and is much more for expenditure for some people's luxury and the kind of, you know, appearance in the public, indeed as great leaders, with the, you know, wrong route to cruise of vehicles, convoy, and at the expense of the taxpayer, not even taxpayer, but at the expense of the debt? Sir, we would like to have a better country.
If I get the question right, the question is why has debt, first of all, emerged in the first place, and why has it continued? Is that, do I get it right?
It is part of it.
Ideally, in simple terms, it's just because we are consuming more than we are producing, or we consume more than our income. And I like to take it back at household level. I listed already what a household person or household would need: food, health, school fees, and all this, clothing. Now, if you start to buy suits which are more than your suits and the kind of meat that you want to eat and whatever you use at home, more than your income, to make you have those needs, you end up borrowing because you don't have enough income. So ideally that is it. But maybe now what we would see is, where are these areas of consumptions that lead us to eating more than our income? Of course, part of it is that, remember, this loan is not a one-day thing. It's things which has gone for years. Part of it emanated from the civil strife. The country went into war, and because of the war effect, the expenditures is high, and therefore even successive governments come up to make needs meet, that becomes costly. The other thing also connected to the war is that the infrastructural systems, roads were spoiled, other infrastructure like electricity, or maybe I leave that one first, roads were spoiled, and even the need for new ones. All these come up at a time when we don't have the income for that.
I want to go with you alongside of your articulation. The war since 1986, right? Up to...
Even 79 war.
Up to 19...
That's why I said successive government after the war.
1979.
79 war also.
We take it to up to 2006. We are
yes.
stable. I believe by 2006 we didn't have any war.
Right? Yes, you can check the records. Yes. So I was saying
in 2006.
2006 was it?
LNA war.
It ended by which time?
LRA war ended 2009.
2009.
In 2006 when they were going to Garamba.
Okay, sir.
So these are, I've already said that the debt in our case as Uganda is accumulative. It's not that it started yesterday. So part of it is the war effect. Wars cause losses, and after a successful war like 79, the successive government comes up when there's no money, and you have to cure the rehabilitation itself. So most of the loan at that time were rehabilitative loans. The other aspect is that infrastructure got spoiled, and they need to work on it, and new ones. All this one, if you check vis-a-vis our income, and our income per se has always been taxation and maybe revenues from exports abroad, which really still cannot sustain that. Then you have areas like, fundamental areas like health, where we are faced with health situation that the country cannot meet through its ordinary income. You have immunization, you have vaccination, you have other things. If it is not done by way of donation, the health infrastructure, including building hospitals, that also takes a lot of money. Then you have infrastructure like schools that you need to build. And then building state machinery like the army. We have gone into modernization of the army, the military equipments and the hardware. All this cost money. So, in a nutshell, our spendings over a time becomes more than the money that we have. In the process, we end up into borrowing. Now, of course, borrowing per se wouldn't be a bad thing. Some people argue that on top of these needs that translate into costing, into income, leading to more than what we earn, some people also think that even the ones that we borrow are not optimally utilized. And if you don't utilize them well, then it puts you into a continuous chain of borrowing. Either you misappropriated what you borrowed yesterday, or you made it redundant, so you didn't solve the problem, and this problem triggers another problem, so you are in a chain of borrowing. So there's a multi-factors that lead into borrowing. Many are genuine. Many are genuine, in a sense that we have needs for our goods and services as a country more than the money that we generate. If we had money, for example, we wanted to build a Simba Dam, which is it $3 billion, we'd wake up and build. And we want to solve the problem of power shortage, or were we calling it, where power is off and on. So when we have shortage of electricity, and you want to build a Simba Dam of $3 billion, where do you get it from? You don't have the money.
Yes.
So similar, that's why the infrastructure, you want to build a road from Karoma to Arua. That road is new. How much money is that? You want to build a road from Masindi to the park, crossing the River Nile to Arua. Where do you get the money? Yes. You want to build from Soroti to Karamoja. So all these goods and services that we consume ends up being more than what the country has as money, and then we end up into loans.
Thank you. Would like to appreciate you, and I'm in agreement with what you have submitted, and I picked the very key 3 points. The war effect, I was calculating, you see here, our writing, and since 1979 up to 2009, that's 30 years trying to stabilize and recover. Stabilize and recover. I've tried to fix it all of it together at the same time. And we can count 13 years of where we've had some breathing space of not running battles with the civil wars and conflict, civil strife and political conflicts. And we also look at the demand of these services, yes, and also building of institutions, the governance institutions, of which some are to, provide a good environment for economic growth. You've talked about the army. Yeah, we appreciate something better has been done. Matters not at the best. we still to aspire for the best legislation, judicial, executive. But the question remains, alongside this, compared to what Honorable was bringing forward in our discussion, while these are good reasons, but there are others which are not, shouldn't be acceptable. As for instance, there is war effect, but alongside the war effect, there are those who are also one of the reasons why it prolonged, and something like some of the truer should be provided. Prolonging this war, we know the issue of ghost soldiers. It is among the corruption scandals. The issue of ghost soldiers, the issue of the Afghan government with the money, and all of these are problems. And as we do handle to put our country in the next 10 years, me and you and the government, if we are all serious and committed, we are saying something better should be done. Another area which I'd like, as you come back to make your submission, the borrowing which we are saying is not bad, but we are borrowing, I want to borrow to consume and meet the needs, because I take it back also the same how you're projecting it. By the time, let's say you borrow 10 million, let 6 million be to bring profit and a way to pay back. And remember, we have fertile land, we have around 45 unutilized mineral resources, the gold, the wolfram, the iron ore. To us, me as a policy analyst, expert, I do look at the way we manage debts, whereas borrowing would have been bad, but as you said, I'm happy that you're here, you're coming from the Secretariat of the NRM. The equal measure of improving productivity seems to lack. And I do trust, I don't say I'm the wise person here. There is planning authority, there are technocrats and researchers. Because the same way how we spend much more into this infrastructure should have been equal measure 50% to lead to production. Tractors cultivating in some of the big chunks of land in this country to find that our production is higher. There is a mismatch. What is your take on that? You first make your comment, your contribution, and I will come in 1 or 2 minutes, and I will come.
Now, debt management, to me, is you have already got the money. It's the ability to use the money as intended, and also the ability to pay back in the agreed terms. In other words, how do you manage this money you have borrowed to improve the economy of the country, and also how do you pay it back? That is the management. So, you have already explained that we need to put this money to use. If it is a mismatch, then I would imagine it is at the level of the conceptualization of the loan. But normally, ideally, there should be feasibility study done by both parties, both the giver and the receiver. Like, for example, if you put Simba, the dam, this Simba Dam, by the time you borrowed $3 billion, you would have already calculated, if we produce this electricity, how much would the cost of the unit be to be sold to the consumers, and who is going to consume? And at this rate, how long will it take to be paid? So ideally, this should be taken care of in the contractual system, yes. And therefore should be able to use it in the economy vis-a-vis paying back.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome you, Honorable. We are still in this dilemma. We borrow, we consume, we are not producing. And finally, there is lack of balance of trade. That's where I'm coming to. And finally, inflation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Joseph.
Yes.
I wanted to comment a bit on what Major and Honorable talked about. Yes, it is at times true, to some extent it's true that part of the money borrowed is to help infrastructural development. But when again you look at the expenditure which is always put in building roads in Uganda, are you aware that a kilometer of road in Uganda costs twice a kilometer of road in America?
Oh, that's serious. I wasn't aware.
And all this kind of thing, when you look at it at time, one would ask himself, do we import stones from outside the country and sand from outside the country to build our roads? We have them here locally. Then how comes prices are very high in terms of the construction? Now all this comes because of corruption. It is basically the corruption level in this country that will continue to deny progress in this country. The level of corruption, the level of how we put the money we borrow into use. I must be put into context that I know borrowing is good. I'm a businessman, I'm a politician. Borrowing is good.
Is it general borrowing?
But how do you use the money you borrow? I have a feeling that we would be having a half of the total debts that we currently have, which is 73 trillion. We would only be having a half of 73 trillion if we were using...
It would be 30 something, 30, like 36.
Exactly. If we were using the right approaches to use the money that we borrow. Secondly, Dr. Joseph, away from borrowing and putting into growth and development, infrastructure, those kind of things, our economy began to collapse in 1991. That privatization policy was in 1991 to 1994.
To collapse or to recover? Or
to collapse.
Oh.
To collapse. Our economy was better before that. When
it is debatable, yes.
It is very debatable.
Yes,
you come with your view. But
no, not my view. My colleague will bring it.
I will tell you that our economy was much better. Was much better before the privatization of the public assets. When the government engaged in privatizing public assets, for example, the UCB, Uganda Coffee, the Ginaries, when they were privatized, at the moment in the country, in Uganda here, even some of the ministries are houses that belong to private persons, are not owned by government. Parliament sits at Kingdom Hall, that is Sudiri House.
And it's too much money they pay.
And if you calculate how many billions we pay per day, not per month, per day, you will wonder. Now, all these wastages would have been carved out. And all these resources that goes into these other sectors that would have been avoided. If Museveni as the president, with the executives, or his advisors, really feel for this country well, they will not allow the country to sink in these debts. We would have avoided wasteful expenditures. We would have protected government properties. They die. How they were shown. Now all these were apparatus that used to raise a lot of money to the country, and they used to protect.
There's something, right, as you are concluding that part, to tell us and the viewers. We are intending to have the solution, and you are part of the solution provider, because you approve resources of the country.
Yes.
How they are allocated. Are you giving us, there any promise that very soon that will end, where maybe the new parliamentary building will be constructed, or any other proposal if you were either coming up with any new one that would have provided? Because the situation at hand, we continue to suffer the challenge, but the solutions seem to be far off. Maybe to the viewers, you may give us some information which is updated. Maybe when are we ending this scenario?
Now, for the construction of the parliamentary offices, would have been done by August of last year, according to what we are told. But how the contractor delayed the entire processes is another story we cannot go into now. But all of us, we have been told that it is work being worked on.
This year, August, you are supposed to have finished.
Last year.
Last year.
Last year, August. But I have a feeling that that will be worked on. The bottom line is, Joseph.
Yes, sir.
We as
Only 1 minute as we go for the break, yes.
We as a country need to agree unanimously that we need to cut down wasteful expenditure.
That's a serious point.
We need to work on corruption level. We need to begin penalizing the corrupt people so that stealing of government properties and finances is carved down. We need to begin channeling our money into the right projects that can help. There are sectors that the government would invest a lot of finances, like agriculture. According to Mafuta Mingi declaration, the 9% is not being met. We give very small budget, the 10%.
Yes.
It's not being met. We give very small budget in agriculture. Agriculture is one of the sectors that would help to bolster this economy, to boost this economy a bit. Of course, we have things like tourism that give us money. If the money is used well, can also help. So unless, as a country, the managers of this country, unless we agree to channel our resources in the right productive activities, we will not get out of the debts.
I appreciate you, Honorable Dennis Nakalita Mere, for your well-articulated points. And that is why we say it's a question of debate. My brother, my elder brother, third major, will give us the version of it, which will also be either contestable in the next few minutes, which will be the roundup phase of our program. And we'll look at that contestation and also come up with the recommendation we propose through our platform. Thank you for staying with us on Smart 24 TV. See you in the next session.